Picking the right hosting provider can be a challenge sometimes. And of course, today we're going to talk about Cloudways to maybe make this an easier solution for you. But overall, I'm going to tell you the things to think about when picking a good provider. Of course, I'm going to also tell you how to leave Cloudways because a database off my WordPress site took forever just to find the settings. So you might need that. So let's talk about it. Welcome back to another video. Today we're talking about hosting and the idea behind something like a managed solution like Cloudways. Now, there are different aspects to picking a good solution for each person that is starting their journey in their business or their hobby or whatever have you that you need a website for. And of course, there are the ideas of future-wise and scaling that could be problematic as we move forward. Your level of knowledge does matter in some cases when you're picking certain providers, where others make it super easy and you don't need to know all the details and you can just focus on making money. That is the number one thing. So we're going to be looking at Cloudways. I've been using them for a couple of years to test them out with different things. And our journey has come to an end. And at that, I wanted to just do a quick review and have this video ready for people who ask me, hey, what cloud hosting provider should I be using? I always get this question, and I just wanted to put together a few things so they understand when they ask me, and I thought most people would want to know about this. I also am making a video about moving a database off of Cloudways and back onto something like a cPanel because it was incredibly challenging just to get the right settings to move it off the database if you don't know enough of what SQL is all about. So I'm just going to walk through a couple settings so you can see what the different settings you should be using because there's no videos out there. And I thought, hey, why not make a video about it? So I'll leave this timestamp below. So Cloudways, the idea of managed cloud hosting, creating a platform out of it is to put everything together that you would need to run a good website with all the requirements such as performance, security, support, etc., etc. Now, there are 5 different cloud providers that they use. They connect with them. And then, of course, there's unlimited applications with each different package that you get. There is PHP apps support. And, of course, they have an innovative control panel that they've created that's custom to them. There is a full support 24/7. And overall, the idea of the backups and them taking care of everything. You contact the company through a chat and bada bing, bada boom, they're connected with you. They're asking you what you need. If you need a backup, it's done within minutes. It's been awesome from a support standpoint. When we're looking at different other aspects such as the CDN they offer, the idea that they just upgrade the PHP for you, they do all these things that if you had something like a cPanel, you would have to do some of these upgrades on your own. So from a techie versus non-techie perspective, this is a good opportunity, and this is why you want to go with a managed solution. Now, when you're looking at the pricing for something like this, very simply put, they provide everything all together in packages, and most people that will go for something like a $26 per month package, and then they will scale from there. You get to pick between all these different providers for cloud hosting, and literally you can then go forward and pick all the different requirements you need out of your website, and you know, off you go and you scale in accordance to that. Now, why have I been using Cloudways as a test? And one of my buddies he's like, hey, just use this, try it out, see what you think. And I got on it, I started using it, and I've enjoyed it. I've tested it out with different websites, and right now I've been testing this new platform that we're creating for Mentors Approach, where people will be able to log in, check out all their videos with all the courses that we're going to have, and then they'll be able to communicate within a different groups within each course. So it's kind of like a Facebook in this website, and it needs a lot of power. So I wanted to just test out something like this solution because it's really geared to this kind of environment, and I want to see how that scaling would work and then transfer it over to something else if I didn't stay with them. And our time has come to an end in this journey between me and Cloudways. So I thought, hey, in this process, what were the specifics I enjoyed, what I didn't, so I can take from that in order for us to kind of implement different softwares on that server and know what we are looking for. So overall, the idea here is that it scaled nicely. Everything worked good, and you can really move forward in a nice direction with your growth. Now, if you are starting this idea of a website, what do we usually recommend? Well, in this case, where we're looking at this price point, this is a lot of money for a starting business. One. Two, when we're looking at this, we're saying to ourselves, well, you're probably going to need something like the $50 per month once you start to grow. And then the question is, what are you going to be doing with your website? And in most cases, people will go for $26, but really they only need like the $12 and for more features because they're just starting out and just putting together a simple website. Your website will eventually grow as your business grows. And this is what we usually recommend Squarespace. We're like, go to Squarespace. Just start your website on Squarespace. And then eventually you can move on to one of these platforms and grow more with something of a more custom solution, like jumping into something like WordPress or a fully custom solution where somebody will code something up for you. Now, the idea there becomes, well, what do you need? And if you're just launching and you want to grow a business, you don't want to have time to deal with all this. What you want to do is just have a step-by-step sales approach on this website with the landing page, get going. Squarespace is that. But once you customize, well, you need more power. And this is where these packages come into play, where you will start and then you can scale. Now, how does this really look on the back end? When you jump in here, what you'll see is that there is a server that we created when we were starting to work on Mentor's Approach back in 2019. And when we log in here, you will see your credentials, you will see the monitoring, you'll see a whole bunch of different aspects on the servers, and then they have this thing called the applications, and this is where you would have the one website and the other website and multiple websites. Now, where does this play a part for the idea of each application? So when I click into Mentor's Approach, I have access details, I have staging management, I have monitoring, I have a whole bunch of different aspects that I would need with any kind of requirement of a website. Okay, so each one gets its own kind of spot on the server, and now I'm able to customize everything for that specific website. If you were a kind of new business with making websites, you would want to be on such a platform where it's easy for you to invoice people. So you're paying $100 a month for so many websites, and you can invoice everybody, and they would all have their own kind of spot on the server, and then you would invoice them, and then you makes that money. That's going to be like your kind of like passive income that is great for any company that is doing any kind of web work. Okay. And from there, like you do get a whole bunch of different aspects. And I think the bot protection has been very good with this. We've been testing it out. I can't complain. Overall, this has done a great job, and I haven't had much spam. It has been great for that. Now, going back to the servers, and the most important part here would be to look at it and say, okay, how do I know how to scale? And you do have this idea of monitoring, you have managed services, and then you do have the idea of vertical scaling along with security. So they're providing all of these all in one package, one price. If you were to go on a cPanel style virtual server, you would need to pay extra. So on a virtual server, you would have to pay extra for something like the CDN. You would have to pay extra for security. You would have to pay extra for a good SSL. You do get the free ones, of course. So there's a whole bunch of different aspects on that kind of a server that you'll have to pay extra, and this comes all in one. So when we're looking at this, all these different services on the server, you do have these the ability to control these different aspects. If you need help with it, they will help you here. So you can restart anything you need, and so on and so forth. When you're looking at the idea of scaling, first you're going to come here and you're going to look at your monitoring. And under the monitoring, you can see exactly what sources you're using or resources you're using, and then you can see how often these resources are being used. And then you can make a calculated decision on what you would like to achieve. Now, you can see here over the last 7 days, over the last 6 months, you can actually go back in time and see, okay, what's been happening with the server and how much CPU has been used. Do I need to scale that? If I click on vertical scaling, I can come in here, and right now I have a 2 GB package, $26 a month. If I wanted more, I can just upscale. Now here's your $96, and this is giving you 4 cores with 8 GB of RAM and 160 GB of space. Okay, that is kind of in that above average pay, but cost, but you are getting way more than the typical server. Now, the idea of as you scale more and more and more, say you are what we just described before, and you are reselling these services, you do get into this point where the highest amount here is $1,035 a month. And this gives you 32 cores and 192 gigabytes of RAM and a lot of space, almost 4 terabytes. So is that worth it? Well, if they're managing everything for you and you have a situation with your clients and you have that many clients, okay, is that worth it? Well, depends on what you want as hands-on. At this price point, you would be thinking, hey, I'm going to switch away from it. And I'm going to go to something that's more custom, something that I have more control of. And then I would have a support team that's going to take care of the server. So basically, you are you're getting the ability to really customize everything you need. At this price point, it is expensive. Now, when we were looking at it for what we're going to need with this new website, we're going to have 16 cores and about 64 gigabytes of RAM eventually. So we're going to scale from this $160 a month all the way up to this $395 rather quickly. And the idea then becomes, well, should we be sticking around with Cloudways? Okay. I was happy with them. And I think I was most happy with them because of the support. The support has been like phenomenal. If you need a backup, I just go in there in the chat, hey, can you do this backup? And bada bing, bada boom, we're done. If you need something, bada bing, bada boom, they're done. Okay. They're there to help. And I got to tell you, one of the most important things you can choose with hosting providers is support. How fast do they get back to you? How fast do they do work with you? We use a couple companies that we work with different hosting solutions, and the ones that support with, within the amount of time that we need them for, man, the night and day experience. Okay. When you have a company that doesn't get back to you for like 2 days because you're not a priority client, you got problems. And this is where we are on the high-end solutions. We charge more, and then we can provide that service and support them on demand. When we're looking at it in terms of people telling us, well, you charge too much, it's like, well, go to GoDaddy, go somewhere else. Like, we'll go wherever you want, okay? But you're not going to get that support you need. And when you need it most, you're not going to get it. We're there taking care of things. Even if the solution is some other problem that we can't deal with, we'll take care of it and work with that provider to make sure we get you going up again. That's what you're paying for. And this is where you're paying this money. You're paying here for that support, of course. And it's a good opportunity if you want to be hands off. So if you're leaving something like Squarespace, and you are moving from that environment, creating your own website, and you want that same kind of support that everybody just talks about being awesome. And when we tried them out, again, support was great, but not as good as these guys. These guys have been phenomenal. This would be something that you would want because you want to be off hands. You don't want to deal with any of this stuff. So why not? Why not switch into that? Now, the idea of vertical scaling is that simple. It'll take a couple hours for them to upgrade. It does do that automatically, and off you go. Very easy, very convenient, and you don't have any big issues in that. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves with this is that there's no file management system on this. And what I mean by that is when you go to cPanel, you have a file manager, kind of like your, My Computer, and you can actually edit stuff on there on like as you move. So a lot of the times I just go, if I'm working with a WordPress site or I'm using any kind of other software and we need to alter the files, a lot of times I'll just go in there, download the file and then edit there in case, something happens. I have it stored on my computer, but I'll just edit and then off we go. With something like Cloudways, you need to use something like FileZilla, and you need to connect in that way. I just find it takes time and for small, mediocre tasks, and it's annoying. And I wish they had that. They don't have that, and that's kind of like, it rubs you the wrong way. Another aspect of it that kind of just bothered me is that when you're looking at it in terms of what you need with scaling and what you think you need, sometimes I just feel that when I'm talking to support, they are recommending something where I'm looking at it and going, do I really need this? And I always ask myself that. And when I did upscale recently, and I was looking at it and saying, okay, let me go from this 2 gigabytes where we had like the just a regular 2 gigabytes to this 2 gigabytes, I didn't, it says with faster cores, and then you're like, what does that mean? And when you reach out to them, you have to be very specific with your line of questioning, and they will help you. And what I found was, like, originally I wasn't going to move away from them yet, but I realized, like, I'm going to scale eventually soon. And at the same time, I asked them a few questions about, I was doing my tests and I wanted to move everything over to my other server to test on that server a few things that I couldn't use because of some security stuff here that I have to get them to adjust. And they were just kind of like, well, talk to that other host. And it was like, about what? Like, I just want to know how to download the database for a cPanel. And they're like, well, we don't do cPanel, so we can't help you. And I was just kind of like, but how do I just download it? And it was just kind of like, check out these articles. And it was almost like you were sitting there going, why isn't this easy? So there are some stuff, and there's a couple other things that were similar where it's like, why isn't this more easy? Like, it should be easier. But there's certain things that I just feel like, hey, they're making it more challenging than it has to be. And it almost seemed it was based on the idea of me leaving. Speaking about leaving, let's look at the idea of moving a WordPress away from this cloud service. Now, Cloudways has this backups location under servers. So first you're going to go to servers. You're going to click on local backups and click enable. And then you're going to take a backup now. This is going to literally download all your files into the local spot. And you can log in with FileZilla, or you can do the download through the interface. Once you do that, you're going to need your database. So when we're looking at the database, we're literally going to have to go into applications and then come into launch the database manager under access details. Once we click on here, we're going to have to come into your WordPress database. You're going to be selecting the database you need, and you're going to click on export. With export being clicked, you are now going to be looking at, okay, what do I actually need with all these different terms? Now, in a cPanel scenario, you just click download backup, and it downloads the SQL database, and you can just import it or do whatever you need. The idea here is you need to be very specific and based on what your new server is going to need. But in most cases, it's a gzip, it's an SQL. And then under database, there are selections for use, drop, create, and just create. I had to leave it blank. I tried all these different scenarios and I had to leave it blank. And I just assumed it would. Anyways, this is what I needed to do. There was routines was clicked, events was clicked, and then tables, I had drop and create. And of course the triggers, and then data was insert. I click export, and then I would get the exported document that would be the database. I would head over to the new server. I would go into the SQL and click import into the database. It goes. Now, when you are on the new server, what you want to do is make sure you set it up so that you have the WordPress installed and you copy the exact name of the database with all the passwords and all that, so it can be identical. That way, when you import, you have no issues. It just imports right in and off you go. You can change the database name later and do whatever you need to do if that is what you are looking at as a good solution for you. But that's the step-by-step approach of what you would need to do there. Again, those were the settings. I will leave a link to an image down below. My idea, very simple. Overall, I've been using them for a couple of years, testing different stuff. I can't complain. They're very good. If you want a natural progression of a step up with something that is similar to something like Squarespace, but now you're going to be using something like your own WordPress and you want to scale different functionality there, then something like Cloudways, a managed solution that provides everything you need, is solid. And I got to say, I don't have that many complaints. I don't. Overall, it will be good for the average person who's trying to scale and grow. But the price point, at a certain point, you're going to have to make a decision, kind of like me, who says, all right, at what point is this worth it? And for me to scale more than this when I have the virtual servers and all that stuff, there's no point for me to stick around with this. This was an external environment where I could have coders working on different things, and they're not part of those other server environments. I felt, it all worked out nicely. Again, you got to look at this and you got to say to yourself, what is it good for you, for your business? And how does that make sense for you? On a budget, we always look at time, energy, and money, and we say, how does it relate to us with with that time, energy, and money, and how will it relate to us in the future, and what is the best outcome for me on a logical situation, not on a emotional one. This is the number one thing we have to look at and understand when we are moving forward with anything that we do. Now, last question I get asked all the time is, when I'm designing any kind of website, what is the goal of that website in terms of how the software will relate to what I'm trying to do? Which, to expand on this question, would be, what do you need when it comes to your process of sales and the marketing material, and then the idea of how your customers are going to be treated with the product or service you're having? Using different servers should be something you should be doing. Okay, when you have everything in-house into one kind of solution, like having your database, your files, your email, all that stuff into one server, becomes dangerous with security. And even something like Cloudways can be threatened and can have a hack. There can be hacks with anything. You need to look at it and say, do I pay somebody the money to make sure that I'm secure? Do I pay somebody to make sure that whatever we're setting up, or whatever this programming person or company is doing over here, am I secure? And I always encourage people to look at their solutions and say, is the budget that you have important? Yes. Okay, so how close are we to the budget, and will that extra money for security play a big role? And how much? Okay, there's two aspects to this. One is you're actually going to be sitting there going, okay, I'm feeling safe with my customers being on my website, on my security steps to make sure everybody is healthy and good. And if anything happens, I'm not going to be worried about getting sued. Secondly, you want to make sure that you're doing something where you are specific to the idea of, how do I protect myself in terms of insurance? Now, some insurances, you got to check. Some insurances require certain things when you ask for insurance to protect yourself in case of hacking occurring, or any kind of situation online in that manner. So you want to make sure that the insurance, you reach out to them and you make sure that that provider can be secured and covered by insurance. Okay. If you don't, and then you apply for something and you pay for the year like $500, $800, $1,000, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, the insurance says, well, you kind of need this security, this security, this security. Now you get a little bit of a problem. Okay, that's kind of like where I'm like, okay, then what? Insurance is critical. I would definitely look at insurance for my business. If I was anybody, I always recommend to go to insurance and say, okay, how much can I be covered for what? And when you're looking at it with the type of clients you're dealing with, you can go from 50,000 to 500,000 to $1 million to 5 million. General liability doesn't usually cover this kind of insurance. You need to have separate insurance for all these types of situations of vulnerabilities that could happen with your website and being hacked, and potentially being in a situation where you get sued. So these are important, critical aspects, and I wanted to cover them in this video and talk about this because I don't think it gets covered as much as it should. And overall, you could be on a good service, but if you're not covered on this and something does happen, the question is, then what? My name is Nikos. I leave your questions, comments below. Of course, check out these two videos. And if you have more ideas around this topic and you want me be more specific on hosting and what you're doing with your websites, please leave the question in detail below and ask me to make a video. And I'm going to do my best to do all the research and give you all the answers you need.